Man vs. Bee really feels a lot like watching a single episode of Mr. Bean stretched out into a mini-series unnecessarily. Even with the short episodes being only 11 minutes, I still think there's not, enough stuff here to make a full series. You have this whole concept, there's just this guy, who's house sitting and fighting off the bee. And another thing about it that makes me want to compare it to Mr. Bean is the fact that so many of the decisions that this character Trevor makes are just so ridiculous, so idiotic, so nonsensical. He gets so obsessed with this whole petty rivalry that he has with this stupid bee that he's basically willing to just like try to blow the backyard up. He ends up injuring the dog that they have severely, if not worse, and ends up, escalating into this crazy thing where he's like burning the entire house of these people he's supposed to be house sitting for. And there's so many just like ridiculous, decisions that the character makes throughout the entire series that I could see it working better if it was like something Mr. Bean, because the whole thing with that character is he's this childlike, like basically a cartoon. But this guy, Trevor, is, for the most part, a pretty normal, responsible, ordinary adult. So the idea that he would make some of these dumb decisions, I think just makes it so difficult to suspend your disbelief in any way that you can't get invested in this too much at all. I mean, it's not the worst, it's totally competent, when it comes to like production, acting, and stuff like that. But it really, I think, just mostly falls pretty flat. It's pretty mediocre at best. Even compare it to the sequel series, Man vs. Baby. That worked better a little bit, not a lot, but a little better for, like, I think two main reasons. One, I think there was a little more variety to it with kind of the different locations and kind of different situations he was getting into with the baby. And two, it worked better because it had kind of more of those kind of nicer sentimental moments, which were executed pretty well. And, this has like maybe a couple attempts at some nicer moments, but, you can't really get, invested enough in anything to, care about it at a certain point. By the end, that final episode where it becomes a little more like a story, it's just like, I'm out of it at this point, I'm lost. I don't really, care about what happens to this character so much because it doesn't feel real. He feels so absurd and ridiculous. At least with Man versus Baby, it did show that they improved on their second attempt, but this was really just not that good.